This is an overview of the toxic substances database built by Brian Beasley and Chad Ackman for our final project in Industrial Safety Administration. We built the application on Intuit QuickBase, which is an online application that can be used for creating databases. It allows you to customize it to pretty much anything that you would need it to do. So what I'll do now is I'll just sign into the application using my UARC email address, and the password is simply password. Click sign in, and it'll show me first off the application that I have access to. So the only one I have access to right now is our toxic substance database. I'll go ahead and click into that. And what I'll start by doing is just kind of giving you a brief overview of QuickBase itself, and then we'll go into some of the features of this application. Any database it basically is built on fields, forms, and reports. The field is the smallest unit of data stored in the application. So each of these columns represents a different field. We have the ID number of the chemical, the name, permissible exposure limit. Now all these fields can be added, edited, or removed by clicking on the fields section within each table. You can see that I can add a new field by clicking here on add a field, and then it shows the types of fields that are available within QuickBase. You can do anything from drop down text boxes to currency, time of day, and then you can get more sophisticated with numeric formulas and things like that. It'll really do pretty much anything you want it to do. So once you have your fields created, the next step will be to create a form. And I'll go ahead and show you the form that we've created for adding substances to the database. And this is it. Okay, you can see that I've organized the fields that I created on the form for the data collection. I can change the position on the form by simply right-clicking on it and saying edit the properties of this form element, and then this screen will come up, which is my form editor, and I can manipulate the fields on the form. Okay, you can see that we have a place for the name, the permissible exposure limit, ventilation requirements, and then we have additional data, the United Nations North American Identification Number, National Fire Protection Association numerical hazard rating, Resource Conservation Recovery Act's EPA hazardous waste code, and the carcinogen status, which will tell us whether or not it's a known carcinogen. And then we can also add MSDS sheet and kind of use the application as an online repository of MSDS data. Now I'll back out, and we've covered the field, the form, and now let's look at one of the reports. This is simply the list all report. You can see that the fields that we have in this one are the permissible exposure limit, UN, NA number, NFPA, RCRA, and the carcinogen status. Creating new reports in QuickBase is relatively easy. I can go to the table that I want to create the report within, and then simply click reports, and I'll have a choice between just a basic table, which will list the data, grid edit reports, which is pretty much like an Excel spreadsheet. It'll allow me to manipulate the data on the screen. A summary report, which basically behaves like a pivot table in Microsoft Excel. Calendars, charts, timelines can also be created. Now let's start by looking at one of the chemicals within the database, sodium molybdate. Now you can see that we have all the information already in the database for this chemical. Permissible exposure limits, ventilation requirements, etc. Now what I want to show you is what we've done to create the what we've done to help determine the air contaminant exposure based on a time-weighted average. What we can do is go to our second table here, exposure data, and basically enter an observation. Now, the example that I'm using can be found in the book, page 212. It's case study 9.3. I'll simply select the date that the observation occurred, the time that we started making the observations. We'll select the substance, if I can here we go. And then I'll just simply enter my observations. Okay. So our first observation occurred at 8:30. a.m. We have to designate that. We have an 11 o'clock a.m. noon. And finally 3 o'clock p.m. Now you can see as I type that in, it's calculating my time-weighted average. Now that all the data is in there, it gives me 4.125, which is the time-weighted average. I can save that. And now when I return to the profile for sodium molybdate, this data will actually be contained within that record. Okay. So I also want to point out before I go to the sodium molybdate record that it's calculated the length of the period between each observation. Okay. Now we'll back out to the chemical, and you can see that the observation is recorded right here for us to review. Okay. So that is a basic overview of the application that we have created. I can easily add additional users. You can feel free to add yourself if you'd like to play around with the application. Anyway, that is a summary of our project. Thank you.